What a mess. Well, I've just finished a pretty roller coaster week of recording an album for a bunch of fantastic guys from Berlin. We did 9 songs in 5 days. And then on the last day, on Friday, in the evening, they played a little gig in the restaurant while I was making pizzas for 51 people. And then we celebrated until the small hours, celebrated our week's achievements. So yeah, it's been pretty full on. But yeah, I was reminded again this week of the absolute joys of recording a band all playing live in the studio, and that being the kind of basis of a recording of an album or whatever. After I finished making pizzas on Friday, I gave a bit of a tour of the studio to some of the guests, some of the people that had been eating the pizzas, and I ended up kind of explaining about how we had been recording basically, and using the gobos and positioning things to minimize bleed but kind of maximize ambience and kind of the kind of glue that you get when you all record in the room together. By the way, I just know this is so messy. This is not a session set up. This is basically stuff dumped in here after the gig. So yeah, I don't really know. I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't know what to say. It's not really going to make any sense at all visually looking at stuff. This is just pretty much where we kind of ended up after a frantic week of recording, kind of using absolutely everything really, and then combine that with stuff just being thrown back in here very early on Saturday morning before everybody left. All right. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and yeah, let's get on with the video. So I think there's different elements to consider when everybody is playing live in the studio. From an engineering perspective, I like it because I feel it's a bit like being a wildlife photographer. There's an event taking place, the only time this event will ever happen in this way, and your job is to capture it in kind of the most interesting way you can think of. It also starts to feel a little bit like making a painting or something, because you start off with a kind of general basic setup that you, from your experience before, feel is going to work. And then as the band kind of gets settled in and start doing takes, you start kind of finessing. You know, the level of detail goes up a bit. You start finessing the positioning of microphones, etc., until the whole thing starts to kind of really feel quite finished, or at least starts to feel like it'll be finished with a bit of a mix. And there's something about sitting in the control room when it's all really working, knowing that there are many, many thousands of solder connections and cables and electronic components all working perfectly in that moment to allow all of those microphones to be capturing all of that sound and combining it into this one finished thing, which in itself is kind of nerve-wracking. If you've built the whole studio yourself and you sit there thinking, okay, I've got 25 mics up and somehow everything's working, and it's quite a trip. Quite thrilling, quite nerve-wracking, kind of, in a way, but it really is like, okay, this is this place like working to its kind of fullest potential. Obviously, when you kind of throw production into the mix as well, it sort of, my analogy of being a wildlife photographer kind of falls apart a little bit, although I'm sure there are wildlife documentaries that were kind of interfered with by the film crew. From a purely engineering point of view, I just find that process of like putting things under the magnifying glass in real time extremely interesting. And as far as production goes, I feel like that is the biggest reason to work like that, to record with everybody live, because it's the only way that you can try completely different arrangement ideas on the fly, live. You know, I find that is one limitation of doing the kind of bit by bit kind of layered method, is that you're sort of stuck with whatever the initial idea was. Like certainly if you're going to start with like drums and guide guitar or something, and then you're going to layer everything up on top of the drums, you're kind of heading in a direction which, I mean, if the drums are really cool and groovy, then it's probably going to sound cool. You know, there's no sort of right or wrong way to do things really. But I do love the fact that when you record live with a band, you kind of know if it's going to work, like instantly. And then you can just say to everybody, hey, let's just do it a bit slower, or hey, why don't we try taking it in like this other direction? Why don't we just have the drums coming in here, and we could we'll just start with the keyboards, and then suddenly everybody gets into this idea, and then the guitar player starts playing a bit different because the song is now a kind of keyboard based song when everyone else thought it was a guitar based song. And the whole thing can just evolve very creatively and organically. And, you know, as a producer, it is also such a buzz to be able to kind of paint with sound in that way, like paint live. I particularly love it when I'm playing as well myself. Somehow it's just, you know, to be able to kind of direct proceedings and also be a part of the musical input as well in terms of playing. It's quite a thrill. Of course, there are many different combinations and in between approaches. You know, there is like tracking everybody live, getting the general idea down, and then go through and replace stuff and kind of polish stuff up that way. That also is another approach. It's just this week, our approach was basically track everything live and then overdub a few things. We overdubbed some trumpet, we overdubbed some Hammond. The vocals we did live, but then we had another crack at the vocals separately afterwards, so we could go in a little more detail. But I feel like even if you do end up replacing a lot of the elements later with kind of more polished versions, somehow you do retain this energy. Maybe it's just that drummers tend to play slightly differently when they know that everyone else is playing with them or something. It's really hard to figure out. But I would say that if you're just getting into recording and you want to expose yourself to situations where you're going to learn a lot about how to do this, I would say take the plunge and somehow put together a session where you can record a bunch of people playing together and try to aim for a kind of finished sounding thing as much as possible live. It's an incredible exercise. It really makes you think about where each instrument kind of fits into the frequency spectrum, that sort of stuff. It also makes you realize the beauty of all of these instruments which kind of have evolved into their current forms, the way that they kind of perfectly complement each other. You know, there's a good reason why we've ended up with drums, bass, guitar, keys, vocals as the foundation of pop and rock music. They all have their little spot where they sit very nicely. And when you record everybody live, often you find you kind of don't really need to do very much to the sound afterwards. It sort of mixes itself somehow. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I'm feeling very inspired. This place is coming to life more and more. The bookings are coming in. It's all very exciting. So yeah, I will sign off for now, and I will see you next week for another video. Until then, look after each other, come and record here and see for yourself. All right, lots of love and goodbye. Okay, just finished Pizza Friday. Again, looking into the studio from outside while all the lights are on, which is something I don't really get to do very often. And it's so tantalizing when you're standing out here and you see inside. It's so cool. And then you come over here, the greenhouse is down there with some LED lights, some solar powered lights, and then the courtyard. It just looks amazing. So so cool to see it all looking kind of finished. And we still have loads more to do out here, but this is very emotional to see this. So this is the band that I've been recording all week, who just played a gig inside the restaurant. I'll take you in there now, because it's also looking good, because it's dark, and it really looks best in the dark. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow morning.